Greetings. My name is Daniel Werner from the Liberalist Facebook, and welcome to the Liberalist live stream, the cringiest place on the internet. Joining us today is Catching Smoke. Catching?
Yeah, I'm UK-based, more well known on the Discord, I suppose, where I, attempt to wrangle everybody into working together on PR and marketing-related backgrounds. Yeah.
Chancellor?
I'm from the, well, you can call me Chancellor or Jordan, I don't really care, from the USA, and I am the chair of research over on the Discord.
Yorick?
Hello, I'm Yorick. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm chair, I think it's activism now. We recently changed a few things. And I'm also the mod on the Dutch Liberalist group named the Liberalisten.
Nice. Fogmind?
Yeah, I'm from the Netherlands as well. I go by the pseudonym Fogmind. I work as a scrum master in the movement, which makes me an advisor to the chairs. And I do a form of activism where I live stream the streets.
You have a Periscope account, right?
Yes.
And that is linked below in the description if anyone wants to see it. Fogmind's Periscope is pretty enjoyable. We also have with us Tim.
Hey, what's up, guys? I don't got a pseudonym, just Tim. From Texas. Currently, it's been a busy day for me. I got this this new job, and right now I'm filling out some paperwork. So I'm going to try and multitask here a little bit. Just if the topic of our conversation goes in a direction that interests me, then I'll interject.
Oh, fair enough. And you all now know why we're here. I want to thank all of you for joining us in the chat there. We're going to get to your questions in a bit. And you know why we're here. We're here because of Count Dankula, Mr. Marcus Meechan. So, does anyone want to jump in there? We saw what happened there. He got charged with what? For being grossly offensive.
Yeah, under like Charter 127 or something like that.
Section 127A of the 2003 Communications Act.
There you go.
Yeah. And some other act, I believe, as well. I think the core issue was that the courts decided that they got to define the context rather than his defense simply being of it was comedy or a joke. Now, there's quite a few things in that act that cover things like broadcasters and comedians, but wouldn't necessarily apply to digital content creators. And this is, of course, the act's quite dated. I mean, it's 2003, so it wouldn't have really been thinking along those lines when it was written. So you can see how it's easy to be open to abuse on those grounds, even just beyond us looking at this like a issue of freedom of speech in general. We could simply look at it as a dated act being used incorrectly. Maybe a good way to go if we're looking at taking any further action in terms of actually looking to lawmakers to do something about it.
So what was the reason for the act being passed in the first place? Does anyone know?
Oh, Christ. I guess as the only person in the UK, I'd be most likely to know, although probably predates my giving too much of a shit about politics. Let's see if I can dig something up here.
Well, we've seen the media react to it so far. If you look at the Scottish Sun, they actually have posted something basically calling Ricky Gervais a Nazi.
Yeah, saying you should defend shit posters.
Right.
That sounds ridiculous.
I've seen that.
Well, the thing you have to remember is he got loads of shit around Caitlyn Jenner jokes and stuff like that. I mean, the same sort of things could have easily applied to him if it wasn't the fact that he had a name. So really, it seems like if you're famous, then you can do whatever you want, and this act won't apply to you. But if you're of a lesser stature, shall we say, then it's fair game. I mean, you have to remember the 2003 Communications Act is quite large and doesn't just cover things like uses of networks and servers and stuff. I mean, it covers as things, you know, dealing with everything from Ofcom to you know, media literacy, and you know, it's not a small act. This is a relatively small part of that act.
Yeah. And if you read this Scottish Sun article here, comedian Ricky Gervais slammed for defending Scot convicted of filming dog doing Nazi salutes to sick phrases, including "gas the Jews." So I'm wondering, when are the Scottish authorities going to look to put this dog down? Honestly, I can't wait for the HuffPost article. You know, with that.
Gas the pug.
Oh god.
Yes, gas the pug.
The HuffPost.
It's probably going to be something like one of those clickbaity headlines they always have, like, "Oh, we should really talk about putting this dog down." Like,
it's been tainted. Oh. This poor dog.
Oh, that's awful.
Somebody throw him in doggy prison.
I mean, really, when you look at the video, and I love the video, I love all of Dankula's content. It's really that good. It's like,
yeah, it's funny.
It's kind of it's a total insult to Nazis overall.
Well, this is the thing, actually. It's one thing that it's funny you guys mentioned Ricky Gervais. I mean, he has kind of a good explanation for this sort of humor, is that the joke is not at the expense of the Jews. It is at the expense of the Nazis. Just because you've missed the subject of the joke doesn't mean that, you know, you have a right to call for someone to be jailed over the matter.
Well, yeah, Gonzad actually made something about this. He made one of his sad truths talking about this. Basically came down on, I don't particularly like the joke, but come on, man. It was clearly a joke. What's wrong with you people?
I mean, the punchline of the joke is that Nazis aren't cute.
Right.
Like, I'm going to think of the least cute thing I can think of, and it's a Nazi. Like, do you think that would have flew in 1940 Germany? You know, like,
no, the Nazis would have arrested him for the same fucking reason.
Right. So this judge O'Connor, I believe his name is. Of course, he's Irish. That's how it works. There was no jury. Is that normal in Scottish courts? Does anyone know in the UK?
Yeah. It depends on the court proceedings.
Fuck that.
If you're in a minor court, it can be quite often just dealt with by the judge.
And lawyers, I hope? At least.
Okay. One would presume.
I'm not assuming anything anymore.
I mean, I'm sure you probably could represent yourself in something like this, but I mean, if you were Dankula, I'd really hope that he wasn't.
Right. I'd recommend no one represents themselves, because the other lawyer is going to rip you to shreds. So, yeah.
Right. I mean, are we going to start arresting? I mean, people have said it a lot, but are we going to start arresting like Mel Brooks and, you know, John Cleese and how many other comedians that are just? That's the thing about comedy. You got to push the barriers. You got to push the boundaries. I mean, not even them. It's going to go beyond comedy at some point. Like you said, this is a big bill. It's not. This is
most of it doesn't relate to speech. To be perfectly honest, in this bill, like I said, a lot of it's around duty of promoting media literacy and you know, what Ofcom should be doing, and you know, there's very small parts of this bill are actually dedicated to this sort of thing.
Maybe, but
we're also talking about regulation of premium rate services and, you know, infringement of copyright, and it's, you know, it's a big bill. It's I think it was basically put forward by the looks of the bill itself as a way to update old laws as we were moving into the internet age, and the digital age, rather, I suppose. I mean, there's even things that, you know, relate to the radio and things like that. You know, it's a really big act. I think it was just designed to update a lot of things. I mean, criminal proceedings is relatively small as an area.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's even things that, you know, relate to the BBC, S4C, which is the Welsh language channel in the UK, and Gaelic Media Service and things like that. So I mean, this is a big ass bill. Like most of it is entirely irrelevant to this sort of thing. It's to explain it to the Americans, it's more like when you have a massive bill and someone taxes something small that they want involved on there.
Oh,
sort of like
I got you.
yeah. So take for example the UAGA, the Anti-Gambling Act that was tacked onto like an anti-terrorism bill, if I remember rightly.
Yep.
It's more along those lines. It's just something small that doesn't really matter to the majority of the bill.
I remember that Anti-Gambling Act. TalkSport in the UK was talking about that a lot. I think they ended up clearing that up for websites because there's a bunch of websites that do sports gambling and make a lot of money off of it.
Shoot.
I was also curious because I heard someone mention that something about one of the laws relevant to the case was repealed during the middle of the court case. But they still went through with it because it was still illegal at the time. But I heard the potential for him to appeal on that grounds.
Oh, that there's some things that are due to be updated. Yeah, there is something on the legislation.gov.uk in relation to some elements of this that are due for update. I think it's like 17888 or something like that. I mean, I'm relatively new to looking at this act, and I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't I wouldn't take any.
I would still appeal the shit out of this. Fuck them. This needs to go to y'all Supreme Court if you have one.
No, they just have they don't have a Supreme Court. They have a brilliance court.
Oh, my.
Let me guess, that is Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's just some old lady on her throne, just yelling at people, throwing cats at them.
To be honest, as depressing as it is at this in this day and age, it might not be such a bad thing. And it's corgis, not cats, if you're talking about Queen.
Okay. The thing is, in the UK, it's been a little crazy the last couple of weeks. You had Tommy Robinson getting attacked on the street. You had Brittany Pettibone, Lauren Southern, and I don't know, some guy that hangs out with Brittany Pettibone getting stopped at the border. Like,
I mean, okay, with the Robinson thing, let's be that could be staged. I'm not saying it is, but I mean, it's very convenient, isn't it, for his narrative?
It certainly is not out of the ordinary for Antifa to do that.
No, it's not.
This is pretty par for the course for the bullshit that happens to him.
Yeah, of course. And I'm not saying it was staged or anything. I'm just saying that there is a potential for that, and we should probably, take things. Yeah, pinch of salt.
I suppose you should take everything with a pinch of salt. But if you could say exactly the same thing about the situation with Sargon, I guess.
Right. And I don't agree with a lot of what Pettibone or Selmer says, but it's their right to say it.
Exactly.
It's idiotic to me. I mean, free speech is it's the best. Like, I don't know if I can even expand on that. It is the best.
Free speech is just like the foundation the whole system is built on, in my opinion. Because if you can't voice your complaints, how can you change something?
Well, this is the thing. In the UK, we built our system before we had any semblance of free speech, really. And, we still don't really have free speech laws. The closest thing that we have to it is really what comes from the EU side of things. Now, that is another issue unto itself, and something that we've not really seen Parliament move to make any decisions on in terms of protecting the limited free speech rights that we do currently actually enjoy from the EU. Now, I'm not saying that this is like we should have remained kind of reason, but it's something I'd like to see put into action, preferably before we leave, rather than just removing that in the interim.
Yeah, I agree.
So moving forward, if you look below in the description on this stream, you'll see an event at the courthouse in Scotland. If we can share it around, we contacted members of the Students for Liberty in Scotland. We also contacted the head of the Glasgow Libertarian Party over in Scotland. They're both throwing separate events, so our idea is to merge all the events, put everyone in front of the cart pulling in the same direction. Also below there, you'll see Academic Agent, another YouTuber we had an interview with on this channel not too long ago. He has a letter writing campaign. That file there is a template for a certain MP. We also have 3 other letter templates for other people. You can print them, fill out who your MP is, and send them out. It's very important that everyone watching from the UK, everyone in the UK who cares about this, who wants free speech, makes steps in the real world to do things. We're also planning a certain tactic where we tie up an office, a specific office's phone system, and make their office inoperable for business. That's going to be a little more closer to the chest. It's going to have to be scripted and regulated very carefully. But it has worked for me in the political landscape over here in the U.S., and it likely will work again. We want to get officials to make official statements towards what's going on to Marcus, which I think we can all agree is extremely unfair. So where do you guys see the Liberalists as a movement moving forward?
Well, I don't know about in the UK, but it seems like they've got pretty strong intentions of turning it into a political party. Even though in my interactions with them, they seem to be they seem to want to follow Sargon a little more than is maybe the best idea. But at least here in the US, I'm planning on setting up a local chapter. I'm encouraging people to on my team to start looking for places where we can hopefully set up chapters that'll be successful and productive, right? All across the United States. Hopefully at least one per state. See if we can't get a huge number of them up and running.
Like, for instance, there's an Ireland event going on April 24th, the day after the sentencing. Computing Forever and Sargon are confirmed to be there. They just got the venue. They're announcing it another time. They have the time for that. We're also holding an informal event, kind of smaller, in New York City, April 8th. That was my cat running around, you may have heard. On April 8th, just to plan for a future event, a much larger one. So really, we have to get, if you go onto the website, theliberalist.net, we're building a directory of regional groups. Hopefully these regional groups will do what you said, Chancellor, and form little chapters. I think that's important.
Ideally. Yeah. Like maybe they're not, maybe it won't be the most organized thing in the world, but it also means that we'll have a huge recruiting base who's going to start pulling from all these local places that are all doing the same general thing, right?
Yeah. So Yorick, what do you see about the Discord? I mean, where does that sit as far as
the Discord, like the Liberalist International Association? You mean?
Yes, sir.
Well, basically, we're trying to be an international platform which you can go to if you want any help with organizing something, starting your own regional groups, getting, like, if you have for example, people are gonna protest, of course, against the whole decision. You would come to us and ask, hey, I'm gonna protest with some liberalists at this place at this time. Could you provide me with templates for posters and that kind of stuff? We're just trying to be
a resource,
some help to alleviate all the stress.
It's a good place to collect resources and point them in the right direction.
It's also a really fun place to hang around most of the time.
I agree, yeah. I've always enjoyed it anyway, even when we have had to deal with some weird situations.
Yeah, but in my opinion, it has been worth it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, the mine that was the Andy server after it got shut down for a couple days there.
Two days of Andy Worski's server causing no problems at all. That was it was just like that's why I said at the beginning, like, we're the cringiest place on the internet. It's like, you know, I can honestly feel that they're getting more salty now that they're seeing in real life things happening. They love to say, like, Sargon is the leader or all of that, and it's like,
you guys aren't doing anything. What have you guys actually done? It's like, well, here you go.
We're gonna do something. Oh, yeah. Well, it's cringe and gay. All right.
Well, doing things is cringe and gay, as we've already discovered. So,
and it's like it's kind of like Adam Smith's philosophy of natural, spontaneous order. You know, I'm a big believer in that, and the people that work hard will show up, and they will you know, to the best of their ability. We have a guy from France named Theo who does a lot of research. You guys have met him.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy.
And that's just what he loves to do. So he goes, I want to do this. And I would say to everyone watching too, if you have an idea, take the initiative, then come to us with what you've started and we can help you boost it. You know, we're the megaphone for you at the main Facebook and at Discord. Like, we're the guys you can come to and be like, hey, you're like Yorick was saying, we need a poster or we need banners or, you know, we can't find a venue. Like, let us help. And, you know, as long as we're all pulling in the same direction, it should go really well. So, Liberalist Day at the Zoo.
Yeah.
That was funny.
So,
thank you.
You guys want to tell us what this Liberalist Day at the Zoo? If you guys want to check it out, watching now, Fogmind's Periscope is underneath the description. So, go ahead.
Yeah,
Guys.
we've also condensed, like, because it's like 3 hours of footage. We also condensed it in a little video. I'm gonna put that in the chat. I'm just searching it. If Fogmind, can you go ahead and kind of explain the whole shtick?
Well, there was a demonstration by an organization called Committee 21st of March. What they basically wanted to do was prevent two political parties from running in the local elections because they were quote-unquote racist. So we went to the demonstration and had a Discord stream in order to interview those people.
What did you find out in interviewing them?
Well, there were actual communists, actual socialists, and a lot of virtue signalers.
Oh, good lord.
Like, of course, we couldn't really ask any really serious questions because we were just posing as as what was it?
Journalism student.
Journalism students. So. Yeah, basically we just asked them what they were and what they believed in to kind of get a feeling of what we're fighting against, I guess. It was largely just basically it was me, Fogmind, and Rambo. Most people in the movement probably know that guy. He's made quite a name for himself. Well, we basically just went there and hung out for a day and left all the virtue signalers, all the communists, and all the socialists. It was really fun.
You also brought back quite a lot of their propaganda, which has been which Rembo's been translating through, which has been very interesting to read.
Yeah, I mean, we were there, of course, and we were kind of walking with them, just like standing a bit on the side to get the proper angle to film. Yeah, so yeah, in that case, you're gonna get a lot of folders, and we read them, laughed at them, and realized maybe this could be useful information. So Rambo took the initiative to translate them.
And we will be doing some, write-ups and putting those out in the next couple of weeks. Just the Dankula thing kind of took over, I believe.
Oh,
yeah,
pretty much
be our focus right now.
Yeah. Now, what were they handing out exactly?
Well, just flyers of what their organization was. I have it here. Like there were just like today we're having regional elections, so there were a lot of regional parties trying to get some support. So we got people from Bijeen, the Pirate Party, Amsterdam, and kind of the Green Left of GroenLinks, as they're called here. And we got a lot of organizations like the International Socialist and a very interesting folder about the FAQ on anti-fascism and freedom of free speech, basically.
Oh, that looks great.
Yes, and why we shouldn't have it, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that one is a comprehensive argument against free speech.
So did you happen to ask them any questions such as where's the pro-racism rally?
Well, I didn't want to get beaten up, so. And Antifa was there, you know. It were a lot of virtue signalers, as they're called, but like I really don't want to get beaten up.
Well, Yorick and Rambo basically walked into the black bloc.
Yeah, I was. That fucking gave me a kick. I probably can't like tell everything about it, but basically there was a reason why I needed to be in the black bloc, kind of LARPing as an Antifa member, and so basically I was standing there in the middle of that block, and it really didn't feel intimidating. I didn't really feel scared or anything. It was quite strange, like quite a lot of adrenaline, of course.
You mean your average Antifa member isn't a hulking badass? I never would have guessed.
Well, let's put it like this. I think Fogmind can testify to this. I'm not a very big guy. I'm not very muscled. And I could probably take a lot of the guys there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Antifa guys being sort of kind of pathetic looking is nothing new, is it?
Well, on the outside, they sometimes don't look pathetic. So they.
So Dan, I put a link to the YouTube video in the chat.
Yeah, I couldn't post it because I don't have mod permissions.
All right, I can edit this thing and throw it in there now.
Sure.
So,
yeah, someone in the chat is mentioning Scottish Liberalists. Have you guys found that before?
Yeah, there's a Scottish Liberalist Discord. I just shared the Discord link. They're going to be angry about that because I guess when I posted it, I didn't see the comment that it's strict rules against sharing it. That's my bad. I guess I could delete it now, which I will. Sorry about that. There is a Scottish Discord server that just.
I didn't know about that.
They're getting all their ducks in a row, so to speak, and locking it down because obviously anytime we create anything, there's going to be salty LARPers to come around and try to distract, disrupt, and all that shit. Now, they just started it today, according to Tom. Tom McEachin.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a Scottish name?
It sounds Scottish.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Yorick, you also look like an Antifa member, don't you?
Yeah, I went to the barber yesterday, so that problem has been solved. My hair was getting quite long because I'm a lazy bastard.
Well, with this scarf in front of his face, he really did.
I'm gonna take that as a compliment. I know it isn't, but I'm gonna take it as one anyways.
Yeah, I was very happy to see Rembo's face. That was very nice.
Yeah, me too, man. Like talking for that guy for 3 months here, he's basically one of the big reasons why I didn't leave after like a day. So it was pretty good seeing in real life.
Do you think that's something we should talk about though? The old Discord drama, the Remvolution, so to speak.
Oh,
Some
good lord!
People may not be familiar with that story.
I just want to let that shit die, honestly.
Yeah. So, people, you might see like 2 Liberalist Discords, and one is completely dead. Well, it doesn't exist. It never existed, and don't mention it. All right.
Yeah.
That's the story.
First rule about the old Liberalist Discord: we don't talk about the old Liberalist Discord.
You just broke that rule.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Oh, so any questions out there from you guys? Huh?
Low-res is in the chat.
Hey, Low-res.
No
Hey.
way.
Hey, low res, come back to the new server. It's clean now.
So clean. So really, here's the thing that I wish people would keep in mind, that this battle, this whole Dankula thing is really just a battle in the larger war. If our campaign to have the sentencing turned away, so to speak, if that doesn't work, that's not necessarily a loss. It is a loss for Marcus. It would be awful, and we hope to see it completely thrown out, as it is ridiculous.
Yes.
But just losing that one will not destroy what should be a constant march towards free speech in the UK. Or in throughout the majority of Europe. You were saying though, Yorick, earlier in the Netherlands, your free speech is you have good protections for it.
Pretty much, yeah. I would say I could probably get away with a lot here.
As awful as it is, if Dankula were to receive an overly harsh sentencing, it would probably be good for actually getting freedom of speech.
Right.
In that, we'd have a much easier time of gathering popular support.
Yeah, we would have a martyr.
Yeah, as morally, it would be indefensible of us not to do whatever we can to make sure that doesn't happen. However, if it did, we probably should plan in advance for a way to capitalize on that.
That's kind of a big part of the problem is, as I have understand, it's one of the first cases the law has been used in such a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if Dankula got like a big sentence, or even if he got any sentence, I would still like to see it thrown out. That would set precedent for other cases, and we would probably see a big rise of the amount of these sorts of cases. And
I don't expect he'll receive much. I think if we're being realistic, he'll probably get community service and a fine.
I really hope so for him.
I hope he doesn't even get that. Fuck that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the deal?
Yeah, I hope he
video?
doesn't.
Why this video? Why is this such a big deal? I mean, you have stories of men abusing little girls and not getting jail time whatsoever. And they're talking about 6 months jail time possible for a joke. I mean, what do you think the deal is?
Jokes are dangerous. Rapists are just normal. That's fine. Jokes are what we need to focus on. Let me just liberalist position. Jokes need to be regulated. Rapists were totally good. Who cares?
Well, the first person the communists shot when they took over Russia?
Wasn't it a clown?
Yeah.
It was a clown.
Yeah.
Poor clown.
I mean, where does the UK move forward from here? Is it possible to get codified free speech?
No, not in any realistic time frame. I don't think that's going to happen.
Especially not in the current political landscape over there.
Yeah, as depressing.
Well, how would that even happen? Because over here, what you would do would normally be an amendment to the Constitution. Like, for instance, if we didn't have it already in there, we would do that would be like an amendment to that we could say, okay, this is part of it, right? There's at least a.
Could be done here.
How would you guys do that?
The only way I could see it being done here is, and this would involve us having to sensibly utilize and weaponize the left and the Ramonas. If we can highlight it as a core issue that we are losing some of our protections as we leave the EU, and demand that we have new protections put in place specifically to handle this, that would be the only way I could see it garnering popular support. Basically, we'd have to frame it in the language of the left and pin it as a concern that we have as a result of Brexit. That would be the smart move. That would be the only way you can get it in the near future. Beyond that, I think what the most realistic thing that we could hope to achieve in terms of anything that could protect the likes of Dankula would be to update the protections that broadcasters have to apply to online content creators as well. That would be something that I could see actually passing in Parliament, because that's talking about an update as technology has moved forward, rather than a fundamental change to the UK legal system.
I mean, it is, we're talking about the law in 2003, right? Yeah. I mean, in 2003, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have Twitter, you didn't have Facebook, maybe MySpace. I wouldn't know. I'm too young for that.
Oh, I remember MySpace.
I don't. I'm sorry.
I miss Tom always being my friend, no matter what.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
And the clusterfuck, which was individual people's profiles being able to be messed around with HTML.
I like that Tom could always just look at his profile and be like, I know exactly how many people are on here. This is great.
Yeah.
And now Tom has no friends.
Oh, hi.
Poor Tom.
No, it's still around. It's still around.
Yeah, but nobody's on it.
I think musicians use it, don't they?
No, everyone uses like Bandcamp and things like that now.
Yeah, fair enough. Poor MySpace.
But yeah, the law was put in place at the time where online content producers weren't a thing, and I guess if the law would be written now, online content creators would obviously fall under the same rules as the BBC and the other large part.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I doubt they'd be taken quite as seriously as a major broadcasting corporation, just because of the nature of the numbers employed. But we could expect they could have some semblance of protections, and I think that that's something that we can realistically sort of, to use an American parlance, lobby for. But I think, yeah, I think that's achievable. I don't think pushing for free speech is achievable, and like I said, unless we try and sort of weaponize the left in terms of Brexit.
Now, how about Liberalist as a political party in the UK? I do feel that regionally speaking, it makes sense for regional groups to create political parties, at least in Europe. I can go into detail about what I feel about America later, but how about
it isn't very positive. Yeah, to be fair, I've looked a little bit into the British political landscape, and as far as I've understood it, like every local constituency elects their kind of leader, and they go into a national congress, kind of. Like here in the Netherlands, those two are split. And I could, yeah, I've kind of been looking into possibly creating political party. I think it's a lot more feasible here than even England, or let's not talk about the clusterfuck that is America.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, America's even more two-party than we are, but I think
I think that works. I'll be honest. I shouldn't divulge exactly what we're doing in my city, but with the two-party system, your role, or at least your way forward, is to you can hack into one of the major parties. What we're doing is we're looking at the party that has the most support in our city. Then we're going to primary the sitting officials. We noticed while running for office last time, actually the last two times, that the people already in power do not campaign. They don't need to if you're running against a third party, because your votes are already there. People do not split their tickets like that. So the idea is to primary them, and then in the general, your votes are there. So
local elections are much easier to sort of hack as an independent or a small party. Because the way that
I've ran twice with a small independent party, and it doesn't work.
I think it's doable in the UK on the local level. There's a lot of independence on the local level, but it's typically done because of the way our local elections work. A lot of them have chunks that are done almost every year, because they kind of run on a rotation system. So like a third will have their election at X, and then a third will have their election, a year or 2 years later, and so on and so forth. So there's constant rotation, and it's a lot easier to get into those local ones. But when we're talking about our MP system, yes, in theory, you do vote for your local member of parliament, but a lot of people vote based on party, not based on the individual politician, which is personally something that I think is an absolute travesty, especially because, so if we take my example of Leeds Central, now Hilary Benn is my local MP, and he is a Labour MP, but he's not, as far as I'm aware, a staunch Corbynite. In terms of, Hilary Benn's more well known for his time under Blair. So there's a very big difference in voting for him versus voting for, say, Diane Abbott.
Right.
And this is something that people don't necessarily take into account, and they really should in British politics.
So Diane Abbott, she's the racist one, right?
Yeah, the one that's like was complaining about Scandinavian nurses treating black people, saying that they shouldn't be allowed to do so, and things like that. So
it's kind of the same in the UK, where it's well, no, it's different in the UK, where it's easier not easier, but easier relatively compared to America to be a third party.
Only at local level. If you're talking about actually parliamentary level, then not particularly. We do get a couple of independents every year, but very, very rarely. I think one of the more notable ones was George Galloway, who I think it was Bradford, if I remember rightly, that he ended up as. He's a very interesting man.
You're right.
So, George Galloway.
Yeah.
And broadcaster, yeah, I believe so. I think he's on Russia Today a lot now, which says a lot about him.
He did write the Fidel Castro handbook.
Yeah, he's a bit of a nutter, for lack of a better phrase.
So for those of us just joining us, or joining us late, if you look at the description underneath the video, you'll see Academic Agent's template for an MP letter. You'll see another 3 templates below that from the Liberalists, where you fill out what you want and send it to who you want in your country, the UK, of course, MPs and such as that. There's also the Liberalist Day at the Zoo. It's where our friends here, Fogmind and Yorick, went to an anti-racism event and joined Black Bloc for a minute, which was pretty funny. Other than that, so we have April 23rd. That's the date of the sentencing. So what do you guys think? Do you think he's going to get sentenced to anything harsh? Didn't they suggest something?
I mean, based on the judge he was dealing with, if his reasoning was, well, it was grossly offensive and we're just going to remove the context, somehow I don't think he's going to be lenient. Just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I would probably agree with the fact that that the small fine and the community service is the most likely, but like this can go either way.
Right.
And I really hope for Michan that he gets off scot-free, but I don't really see that happening.
Right, they were talking about house arrest, right?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Currently under that?
I think they're scared he will go to the Hungary embassy to ask for asylum.
Now, is that really a punishment to have a YouTuber stay at home? Don't they never go out anyway?
Well, the only reason I go out is work and school. So
well, it means he can't walk the dog.
All right, so apparently Low Res Boy has a question. What would be... Oh, actually, there's another question up there about Scottish independence. I think that goes against at least our code of conduct as far as wedge issues go. Having an official position on such divisive issues isn't really wise. I think the best liberalist, radical centrist opinion is for any issue such as that, like abortion, gun rights, and all this stuff, is like, well, the right to express your ideas should never be attacked. Like, we don't ask for conformity of opinion. And I understand it's probably a lot different in Scotland. There's certain issues in America that are a lot like that. So I don't believe that we have a claim to have official positions on anything besides, we really like free speech. We'd like to see more of that.
I think personally, in terms of that, mind, as probably the only British person here, I'd say that, at least for the time being, it should kind of be off the table, at least until we get out the backside of Brexit. I mean, it's not like we don't physically have the infrastructure to be dealing with both at the moment. So, I mean, let's get one out of the way before we even revisit it as a question would probably be what I'd say.
Yeah, I can get why you're saying that. I personally would support Scotland seceding from the United Kingdom because how more local the government, mostly the better.
Right.
But yeah, and I think like in Scotland, a lot of people voted to remain. Yeah.
Yeah. Then again, even in my city, it was a Remain majority, and like there's certain chunks of the UK that voted Remain. It doesn't.
I'm still real happy you guys did it because this will be a great test. Thanks for taking the risk.
Oh yeah, fantastic. I voted Remain, but so be it.
There is one position I think we can all agree on is official. Destroy all communists. That's from Drake Emerson. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good one there. Low res boy here. He wants to know our take on Tommy Robinson.
I first want to say destroy all communists with speech. Don't put them on helicopters. It's a funny meme, but
in terms of Tommy Robinson, I did actually answer low res in the chat, and in short, yes, he should be allowed to speak. I do still think he's a bit of a bellend.
Yeah, same.
Phrase.
I don't know. I kind of like Tommy.
For you uninitiated, bellend means penis tip.
Roughly, yeah. It's used far more commonly in the UK than imagine calling someone a penis tip sounds rather strange.
I started calling people penis tips, and it's going really well.
Great for you.
Or we call him a knobhead. We'll say knobhead too over here.
Yeah.
You don't really. Honestly, I don't think I've heard anyone use knobhead for a long time.
What about knobber?
It's too weak.
Or we call someone a knob.
If we're going to get off topic onto British insults, I want to say pillock is by far the best.
What is?
Pillock means someone who cannot satisfy his wife.
Pillock.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's like an advanced cuck.
Exactly.
My favorite insult is just to look at someone and go, "Shut up, stupid." Like, it flips people out. I don't know what it is.
Well,
It's so.
If we're talking about insults, the Netherlands also has some great insults. Like you probably know that here in the Netherlands we use diseases as curse words.
Anyway, back to sorry, I sidetracked us a little bit there. Back to the Tommy Robinson issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he should be allowed to speak. Doesn't mean I agree with everything he has to say. I understand why he exists, and he and people like him exist because we've refused to address a problem. And yeah, it's just that I would say that he's probably too extreme for my taste, which I don't think is unusual. I think that's probably most people in the UK's stance on Tommy Robinson. That said, I think that the work that Killiam did with removing him from the EDL after it became an even more extreme organisation than it was originally was good. And I think that he is far more sensible of a speaker and organiser, I suppose I'd probably refer to him as, since then. That said, I think his legacy is probably toxic, and he's not someone you'd ever want to attach your banner to. But yeah, of course he should have the right to speak. Everyone should have the right to speak.
Right.
Exactly.
Even citing violence. If he was calling for us to attack Muslims on the street, that clearly would not be okay.
Isn't Robinson from a really poor neighborhood?
He's from Luton, if I remember rightly, which is a area with very high Islamic immigration. It's also had a lot of the more radical hate preachers that were in the UK were in his region. And there's a notable amount of kind of divide between Muslim and other subcontinental groups as well. That, of course, everyone knows the Muslims and the Sikhs don't get on particularly well in most cases, which for a long legacy of reasons. When I say Muslims in this regard, I'm probably particularly referring to those of Pakistani descent because of they have a long and sordid history. But,
here's the thing about when you suppress someone like Tommy Robinson and you suppress people that think like him, the blowback from that is someone even further down that ideological path. And I have listened to Tommy Robinson, and I don't even dislike him, and I don't necessarily disagree with a few things he says. I don't understand people that can't listen to someone they disagree with. They just can't listen to him. And if you look up the definition of bigot, it's someone who cannot tolerate another person's opinions. I feel like the left, in suppressing certain people, are only creating worse monsters down the line.
Of course.
Sort of like
I completely agree.
Well, we're all familiar here with the concept of groupthink. Correct.
Yep.
For the sake of anyone in the chat that's not, groupthink is functionally when you gather a group of like-minded individuals without a dissenting voice, they will progressively become more and more extreme as it's a method of gaining social standing within the group. It's sort of hardwired into us on a sort of basic social level. It's just how human brains work. Now, if you push all of these people into the dark corners where they're only allowed to discuss it with other people of similar opinions because otherwise they'll be shunned, they're naturally going to become more and more extreme. Now,
Eventually,
if you look at some of the Antifa documentation that Fog and Yorick brought back, they're very much of the opinion that these people shouldn't be allowed to speak and that they should be violently opposed, and that us as liberals are responsible for racism and these fascists from, in air quotes, rising.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a guy from the Communist Party who told us in front of the camera that liberalism leads to racism.
Yeah. We also got a guy who said
idiot.
kill all the racists, but it was a joke. That was really funny.
I like what Joe Vlogs says here in the chat. Tommy Robinson, this is Joe Vlogs. Tommy Robinson is walking his way back from extremism. Give him room to modify his position over time. I mean, that's a really fair point, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a few people like Robert Byrd in America here. He was a Grand Dragon of the KKK, if I recall correctly, and he absolutely went beyond. He went straight to the center from the farthest reaches of the ideology. Though he was a Democrat, which, if you look at Democrat-controlled cities, they're essentially doing what the KKK would like to do as far as non-white suffering goes. But Tommy Robinson was in the EDL, and he seems to be pulling back, and he does have fans. If you watch, he has an interview with Imad Talvidi, the based imam, as they call him, from Australia.
Oh, that guy.
And they agree on a lot of things. It's like, you can't have combating cultures inside of a culture, like, at all. You will not survive like that.
Oh yeah, look, personally, I completely agree. Is that he's walking his way back. The problem is, as I said, we could never attach ourselves to him in any way, as his legacy is far too toxic.
Yeah, and plus, the environment he grew up in, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
No.
And that's it's we have to understand what makes people like Tommy, and what puts them down that path. It's quite easy to see. Refusal to deal with problems creates extremism. It creates extremism and extremists. It's just basic logic. We can follow the path, and it's been the case in pretty much all sectors. I mean, how do the commies arise? Because we let things get out of hand in one way, and they come to the wrong conclusion of how to fix those problems.
Well, same thing with Nazi Germany and the treaty they signed and the reparations they had to pay, and then the Weimar Republic completely collapsing after America pulled their money out of the banks. We didn't deal with the problem, and it seems like those in power like to just put on blinders. I don't know if it's intentional or if they do it on purpose. Like, if you consider the EU right now, they have to know that what they're doing will have extreme blowback. You look at the Italian elections, for instance. I mean, that's my question here. Do the people within and running the EU understand that what they're doing is going to have horrible blowback?
More than likely, they probably just don't care. I mean, look, extremism always comes from problems not being solved. Nobody becomes an extremist when everything's fine. It's just not a thing. I mean, of course, there are the odd couple of loons, but their message doesn't carry any weight. With what's happening in Europe, you're going to have a lot more extremists rising, but equally speaking, we're probably getting more leftists rising to, stand on the other side. Now, it's not like this hasn't happened before. In modern world, in post-World War II history as well. We've seen these sort of sides gearing up against each other in UK history, and I'm sure that you've probably seen it on the continent as well. Fog or Yorick, if you would.
I was kind of zoning out there.
Where do you feel the EU is going?
To shit, hopefully. Yeah, basically, at least from my position, like what I hear, I've personally grown up only in the EU, so I don't even know another time. But like when I hear stories about my dad, and he for example, the price of bread has risen quite a lot. Like purchase power has gone down massively since the euro was introduced, because basically our money kind of goes to the poorer regions. How richer the people using the currency, the more it's worth. And it's kind of like €1 was wait a sec, like two gulden 50 or something like that was worth €1. Do you remember that, Fogmind? Well, basically,
it was 2.20 in gulden to €1.
Yeah, and basically, at least what I heard is that prices from gulden to euro were almost the same thing. Like if you paid 80 cents for a bread, after the 80 gulden cents, then you would pay 80 euro cents for it a few years later.
Oh, I could when I was young, like a teenager, I could get a beer for 1 gulden, and now a beer is over €2.
Never mind if you're actually in Sens or Amsterdam and it's even more expensive.
Yeah, I've been to a few clubs there, and like $3.50 for a bottle of water, and that's like hours of work for someone my age.
But I think that effect has been across Europe. I mean, the Irish felt it pretty hard. Never mind the sort of northern Eastern Bloc states like Latvia and Lithuania, when they joined, the impact it had on particularly on their housing market was something quite phenomenal. I mean, if you take the Latvian example, you have to keep in mind that the majority of their population lives in Riga. Now, they came out of communism and pretty much everybody had a house already. And let me put it this way, they're lucky that happened, because the cost of house prices went up startlingly, but the actual sort of the real wages really didn't. Now, the cost of living went up a little bit, but not so much that it would cause, utter chaos, but the cost of property, that completely changed overnight. The euro was functionally a terrible idea that was only really put in place for the ever closer union. I mean, if you look at sort of European political history and you look at, say, the unification of Germany and the role that the Zollverein played, you can see that this is the way it was done there. But the reality of the matter is that the poorer states, putting them on a level currency with the richer ones is utterly insane. I mean, the only reason that the UK hasn't been hit particularly hard by Brexit, when we look at I say the only reason, or is one of the major reasons, that we were able to we devalued the pound very swiftly after the Brexit announcement. That in turn made foreign investment go further. And if we think of the fact that the pound was probably somewhat inflated prior to Brexit anyway, we had a way to go before it was a problem. So as such, it's been much easier to trade internationally because our prices have become competitive again. They previously weren't. And through personal dealings, I can say that it's been much easier to win foreign investment since the pound has gone down for certain projects which will, of course, not be affected by Brexit. So, maybe they're international in scope, but we want to house the development of them within the UK. That has become notably cheaper.
Even I can testify to that. Like I was planning to buy a bass guitar, and Brexit just happened, And well, I bought a base from an English company purely because the pound was so deflated that it was a lot cheaper for me to get it and get it sent over.
That's kind of nice, actually.
Just an anecdotal piece of evidence, but
Speaking of Germany, we have this here. Angela Merkel admits that no-go zones exist in Germany.
Oh, that was amazing when she finally admitted that.
I mean, do you think she really thinks they do, or just feels that that's what the populist people, that's what they want to hear?
No, I think that she's thought they have done for a while. I think she didn't want to admit it because A, she's at fault, and Islamophobia, for lack of a better term. But I mean, if we're being completely honest, no-go zones exist in all countries, and it's not always down to immigration. I mean, there are no-go zones in a lot of cities in the UK that really have very little to do with Islam. They're basically just some of the older, poorer council estates that have got certain reputations and high levels of crime, and it's quite likely that a lot of immigrants have been dumped in there, but a lot of these places were problems before they came as well. I'm not saying that they haven't added to it, because but I'd be interested to see the state of some of those areas prior to the mass immigration.
I mean, what do they mean by no-go zones? Like
they basically mean that the police won't, at least assuming they're referring to them in the same way that you would do if you're talking about a UK no-go zone. It means that policing will be highly restricted, shall we say.
So the police don't do their jobs over there?
Pretty much.
Except unless they're arresting you for a dog saluting, no.
Well, there was talk. Our friend Cody from Australia, he was talking about a certain area of Australia where a lot of, I think he said, Somalian migrants are there, and a Chinese shopkeeper got so upset that these young Somalian men would raid his store multiple times a week.
Yes, I remember seeing that actually.
He put up a sign that said "No blacks and no dogs allowed." So my question was, would the media have been so upset if he just said no Somalians?
I suppose the problem is, how would you tell?
Right. I mean, let's be honest, probably, because it's still racial profiling.
Yeah.
Right. And I see I see videos of riots in Paris. I think this was last year, where the police are in reverse, running away.
Yeah, but I mean, this is France. Firstly, their government mandated force are known for being surrender monkeys, and secondly, they'll riot over everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
so sorry, my British bias coming out there.
France has two types of police. They have the normal police and they have the paramilitary police, and you don't want to fuck with the latter.
Right.
I think that's the same in most nations, right? It's that you don't fuck with the armed police.
No, that's a distinctly bad idea.
Just Americans, everybody's armed police for some strange reason.
Well, here's the thing: in America, the cops have to assume everyone has a gun, and people don't take that into account. And if you look at the studies as far as police shootings go, it's extremely rare. It's more likely. Let's say I was a black man in America, I'd be more likely to be shot by a non-white police officer. And a Harvard researcher studied, I believe, 9 major metropolitan areas and police incidents of force, and found a 1-to-1 ratio black and whites being shot when he accounted for all the variables, which shocked him as well, because he was assuming a totally different outcome.
There was that interview, wasn't there? I forget what the cop's name was, but I mean, he was saying that if we see a black guy, we do think it's more, we do fear that he's got a gun more than a white guy, but we're also more scared that if we get it wrong, we're going to be on the cover of every newspaper. And yeah,
It's called the Ferguson effect. Baltimore
yeah.
crime shot straight up after the Freddie Gray incident because the cops didn't want to be the next viral video.
Right.
And we've seen how body cams have worked. In one of my cities down here, or up here, depending on where you are relative to me, they introduced body cams, and official complaints against police officers dropped 80%.
Yeah, I really am personally for body cams.
Now,
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful solution. Yeah.
Well, now NAACP and Black Lives Matter are now against the body cams.
Against police body cams?
Yeah.
Why?
See, I have some semblance of an issue with police body cams. I mean, firstly, I believe that I don't know how it works in the US, but like in the UK, if you try and film an arresting police officer, they will not allow you to do so. In many cases.
Well, they should.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My point is it should go both ways. And also, I believe you should be able to request that they stop filming, and that any footage after that request should be inadmissible. Would be my, if they have...
If that was these groups' complaint, I would understand that. Their complaint is that police will write their incident reports using the footage instead of their memory. I don't know.
Right, which is more accurate.
Why do they think that's a bad thing?
Yeah, that sounds great, at least.
There's less technicalities to get off of, I think. I think that's what it is, but they won't admit that.
Dan, in theory, does it kind of in some ways not fly in the face of the right to remain silent? Because also, you then have to remain perfectly still because body language could be later used as evidence against you.
I don't think you'll find a court case that uses body language against any defendant.
Oh,
I mean, it potentially could, but the whole point of the Miranda rights is that you're not supposed they're making you aware that anything you do can and will be used against you.
Just say or do. So yeah.
Right. And the body cam would just be more evidence because otherwise, if there's no body cam, the policeman just gets to say, well, he was physically threatening me, right? He was being physically intimidating. And if you see the poor guy sitting there shivering in the corner, well, he's obviously not doing that. So it's sort of verification going both ways.
Plus, in the U.S., we're allowed to film the police. There was an incident over here in Connecticut where the state police at a DUI, one of those "Am I being detained?" guys got pulled over. And
I believe we're allowed to as well, but it doesn't always tend to pan out that way.
Right.
Yeah, same here, I guess. I'd never tried it, so...
Well, here's the thing about the state cops. The "Am I being detained?" guy had his camcorder, and the police took it away from him, left it on the roof of the car, and when they thought they turned it off, they didn't, and they caught the state police talking about, okay, what can we get this guy on? And one of the state police was like, we should just give him back his camera and let him go. Like, he didn't do anything wrong. So when the guy got the camera back, he broadcasted that conversation. 2 of the 3 officers got fired.
Just hopping for a drink, guys. Back in a sec.
Okay. Well, you should get fired for that, so...
So we have a... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Obviously, I'm of the opinion that anything that happens on the street is allowed to be filmed.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk about potential meme warfare in this battle for free speech. I saw a really good meme where everyone wears pug masks to protest in pug masks. Have you guys seen anything good as far as meme warfare?
I hadn't heard the pug masks. That sounds super fun, though.
Yeah.
There was another. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I said I'm actually trying to put together something that's. Have any of you seen the meme that I've been putting all over the Liberalist Facebook? That's basically. I think you've had a little bit too much to think, like a thought policing meme.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's really good, and I want to make like a different version of that with like Lord Keane's face plastered over it in like legal size paper, with, like an explanation off to the right hand side. Get a bunch of those printed off, plaster them all over London and Glasgow.
Maybe Judge O'Connell.
Could you maybe do like a Lord Kitchener style thing as well? Potentially, I want you to go directly to jail.
Get Uncle Sam involved in there. I want you to get your ass in this jail cell.
I had another. I saw another idea that was everyone takes their dog to the courthouse and just shits on the lawn.
That's.
Or call the.
All right, buddy. All right, buddy. You have to choose.
Call the police and report everything offensive. Just you find something offensive, just call the police. Like, I found this grossly offensive, and just like,
yeah,
I don't
How
know if
many
you want
times
to
can
tie
you
up
report
emergency
words
services.
offensive?
Yeah,
Say
I
again.
find it quite strange that in the UK, like a judge can decide if something is offensive or not.
I find it way
That's
worse
crazy.
that they can decide your intent.
Yeah.
Well, I believe offense is tied to the person who feels offended in the law. If they clarified their hate speech law in the UK, I can find it. There's actually a comedian in Canada going through the same thing, where he ripped on a heckler in the audience. She turned out to be lesbian, so she's claiming it's like homophobia or something. I can look that up too.
Wouldn't the burden of proof be on her to prove that he knew that?
I was going to say how well. Probably it's the UK, so no. What do you say? Actually, let me ask this: was he white and was he male? Because if he
There it is.
was, then the burden of proof's on him.
Let's see if I can share this now. Hold on a second. So this comedian, I don't know what this website is asking me for. I will not turn ad blocker off. Okay, let me share the screen with you. So this comedian, pow. And everyone see that?
Yeah.
All right. So this lovely gentleman here,
15 grand. It seems a bit steep.
he's been fined $15,000 by a human rights tribunal. Yes, that's what they have in Canada. It's called the
Jesus.
Human Rights Tribunal. For unleashing a tirade of sexist and homophobic insults against a lesbian couple in the audience. So this is Jezebel, so you're not going to hear the fact that that they were attempting to heckle him. And here's my thing. Here's my thing about hecklers. You deserve whatever you get once you heckle a comedian. I think
yeah, pretty much.
Literally asked for it.
Well, if you don't like it, you can just leave, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like if to go back, like yeah, it's free speech.
What the hell is a human rights tribunal?
Yeah, I've kind of heard about that.
Oh,
There are
Nice.
kangaroo courts.
that's what it sounds like. Sounds like a kangaroo court. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, what I understood of it was that the human right, how was it called? The Human Rights Tribunal.
Yeah.
Yes, human rights
It's kind
tribunal.
of a court operating outside of the actual court system, and
Partially.
they can basically just ignore laws.
Yeah, basically the one making the complaint gets a free lawyer. The one who's on trial has to pay for their own lawyer. And even if the person on trial wins the trial, they still have to pay their lawyer.
Even if they win, they still have to pay the lawyer. What is the point of that?
Yeah, I mean, at least here, if you lose, you pay the defendants or accusers costs.
Yeah, the loser has to pay the winner's lawyer.
Does that carry through to employment tribunals?
I think we should start calling the police on John Cleese and Mel Brooks.
Yes.
Yeah, I would wait till the sentencing, but if he got sentenced, I would suggest, if you live in the UK, just if you find something annoying, just report it as grossly offensive, because that's basically the thing you can do now.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we all know which way this applies. This does not apply to anyone of a centrist perspective. This applies to the identitarians.
Then you film the whole process and just look at the next to the whole situation. Then you have a nice article there.
See, in the UK, actually, I'd be interested to see how it applies to people of Irish descent. I mean, in the UK, at least, people of Irish descent have been a persecuted group for a long period of time.
So there was this going through the Reddit after the Twitter after Count Dankula's verdict. There were some real disgusting displays from authoritarians on the left. I can show you one here, which kind of makes my blood boil a bit. I guess this was a writer for a British sitcom called Father Ted back in the 90s.
I love Father Ted. It's brilliant.
He was a writer there, and this is what he's saying. People asking me if I think Count Dipshit should be convicted for telling jokes. No, but the problem is when you're an unfunny alt-right shithead, your comedy routines just look like hate. The real lesson here is the right shouldn't try to be funny. So Count Dankula, he's calling for an ethno-state.
Well, yeah, that's what I understood. Gas the Jews, Sieg Heil. By the way, the ethno-state's the best thing ever. That was the third part, right?
Right. Seems to be it there. The amount of vitriol from the left over this case, where they seem so happy, like they don't understand how this could turn back and bite them. Why is that?
They don't remember what the word introspection means.
It's probably just because they know that it won't be used against them.
Well, they can hope it won't be used against
them.
them.
No, it will. No, it just hasn't been.
Yeah, they think it's not gonna affect them because they are such a great person. Like to get a Dutch example here, we recently had the whole referendum about the new law involving more privacy schending. Basically, it's a security law, like. And a lot of people said, I have nothing to... Yeah, maybe Fogmind can explain better.
Okay, so the law is called Slapewet, which is a wordplay on Dragnet, basically. How it works is they can't just spy on people who are subjects, who are suspected of crime. But they can also spy on their neighbors, people living in the same neighborhood, their family, basically anyone tangentially related to the person.
Basically, a lot of people are saying they have nothing to hide, but I don't know if it's just stupidity or just like ignorance.
Yeah, it's stupidity. If they're challenged on it and ask like, okay, what kind of porn do you watch? They are immediately like, oh shit, I have something to hide.
Yeah, so it's ignorance, not stupidity.
So they just assume that another party won't get into power that will in turn tell them that what they're saying is hate speech. Because if you look at the original, I guess you can call them like secular blasphemy laws. One of the first people charged with them in England was a man named Michael X. He was born in Trinidad. He lived in, I believe, London, and he got put into jail. It was a law in the 60s against racial. It was called the Race Relations Act. All right, and it was designed to protect Britain's black and Asian populations from discrimination. Michael X was sentenced to 12 months in jail for simply saying he was advocating for murder of white men. Well, not all white men, but only white men seen laying hands on a black woman. Now, here's the strange thing about being a liberal is that you understand that the government will gladly seek tyranny through the worst among us, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Look, this is always the excuse, isn't it? Like the reason we take our shoes off in the airport is because of the shoe bomber.
Yeah.
It's that, yeah. Which is always the simplified example.
I think that uninformed people are basically just always suffering from optimism bias.
Yeah, and I would say a large part of it's mock security, you know?
Although,
it's just to give people a sense of safety.
For context, though, in the UK, we did only get rid of our blasphemy laws in 2008. Our actual blasphemy laws were around until then. So, I mean, a lot of our laws around this are still somewhat archaic.
Were your blasphemy laws actually used, or were they just
in a bit, guys?
Because we had blasphemy laws, but they hadn't been used for decades.
Yeah, I don't think ours have been used for a while either. I'd be interested to see when they were last used. But I I think calling these sorts of laws secular blasphemy laws and explaining them as such is probably a sensible way to go if we're looking at trying to target the normies, as it were.
You know, here's the thing. I wouldn't even put free in front of speech anymore. It's just speech. Like, calling it free speech means there's speech that isn't free. And granted, yes, there's defamation, libel, slander, specific calls to action. But putting free in front of it is just playing into the hands of the media, in my eyes. Well, what do you guys think about that little take there?
I think free speech as a term has at this point almost become toxic. I think you're definitely right there. It's something that has been discussed since we first started getting ourselves together. I mean, I think Hollywood raised it, didn't he, in the very early days, that we need to find a different term for it. Thanks to the fact that it has been made toxic, which is something that the left is, the extreme and totalitarian left is very good at. Making terms untouchable and toxic.
Right.
I think they learned a lot from the Americans and you guys basically making communism a toxic term for 30, 40 years, and they've sought to return the favor en masse, really. So
if you get rid of the free before speech, and you're just defending speech overall, and that would push the I guess I can call them intersectional, progressive left, or whatever you want to call them. That would push them into a corner they've painted themselves into, where now they have to attack speech. Like, I think taking free out of it is I don't know. It's just an idea.
That will probably work.
What was that?
That will probably work.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing, right? So I want to show you guys this. I'm sure you've seen it. So will there be...
Oh, the old Prince Harry.
Yeah. He doesn't go to jail, does he?
No. Firstly, before we go any further, though, was this, if I remember rightly, was this in the context of like a Halloween party or something?
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't at a Aryan youth rally.
No. I mean, it was. I know it was a costume party, but I can't remember the dates on it. No, it's January, so it definitely wasn't. But
maybe a New Year's party.
Yeah, I think there was some sort of theme to it, like
start the 1,000-year Reich on the right foot.
Yeah, we also have to keep in mind, this is Harry, bless him, is not the sharpest tool in the shed. I mean, the guy went to Eton, if I remember correctly, and came out with like a D in art and like a C in something else. The English system, between 16 to 18, you only take 3 or 4 subjects, for context to everyone who's not English.
I would love that.
Honestly, it's actually a terrible idea in a lot of ways. I think that the international baccalaureate system probably makes more sense, but it's very off topic. So yeah, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. He's also a squaddy. Do you guys use the same term in America, squaddy?
What's that mean? We have a squaddy potty.
Squaddy. It's like low-ranked soldier.
Oh, okay, so it's a squad. Yeah, I've
Cannon fodder.
Yeah. So is there a way to make this about like class? Because I mean, Prince Harry is obviously way upper class, and Count Dankula is certainly not, that same echelon.
I think there is possibly a way to make it about class, but I mean, the thing is, you have to remember, in the UK, we're very aware that our legal system changes depending on what class you are. That's not something that's new. And the reality of the matter is that, if you're rich, firstly, you can always, if you do go to court, you can afford a better lawyer, but it's also about how you turn up and the way you present yourself. For example, if I was up in court for something that was typically a lower class crime, I'd probably get a slap on the wrist and sent on my merry way. Whereas somebody with neck tattoos who turns up in a suit that he clearly borrowed from his dad, then he's going to be dealt with more harshly. But it's also because of the way the judge will perceive the person.
I'm not trying to say there's like divisions based on class and how they're getting treated, yada yada. It's more so that the public will view it differently, or the media will better able to spin it a certain way. Like you said, neck tattoos and his father's suit, the media can just go, yep, this guy's a Nazi, look at him. You know, but they'll make, there was a lot of outcry against Prince Harry. That was what I showed you was from an American paper. I mean, it was essentially big news in the West.
Oh yeah, no, this was new. It was big news here as well. But well, I mean, at least amongst the tabloids. I mean, I don't think that, say, the Financial Times would have given a shit about it. But the yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's of a different time, if nothing else. It's you know, we weren't in the same climate at the time.
That's why I bring up the meme war thing, because back in the early '90s, I'm a bit older than most, especially Yorick. The PC culture was real. It was on college campuses. The internet wasn't around. Obviously, we sat by a fire and cooked our raw meat and made the wheel go around. We were really excited about that invention. But the thing is, the PC culture was still around in the early '90s, especially on university campuses. What beat it back was media that mocked that kind of attitude. Like, if you watch Clerks with that in mind, that this PC culture is going on, especially, you know, for a guy in film school like Kevin Smith, and he has a character who calls things gay and retarded the whole time. You know, or you look at Beavis and Butthead or Ren and Stimpy, South Park back in the '90s. Even to today, they still do that. I would say
South Park is something that I would recommend most liberalists watching.
In fact, I would recommend a movie called PCU. It was actually filmed in my home state. Yeah. It has David Spade.
I still need to watch that one.
Oh, it's so good.
Gotta get Blazing Saddles in there.
It actually includes the phrase, take your rape culture somewhere else. Like,
awesome.
It's an amazing film. It was so prescient. So really the whole main thing is, like, we have to mock them. And I think that's the big reason they're going after Dankula, is that, like, we cannot take jokes, or like they cannot take jokes. You know, they're too serious. And that's a big thing we have to avoid as a movement, is we can't be too serious. We got to allow shit posters to do their shit posting, you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting you referenced South Park, because there is actually one thing that I do remember from one of their more recent series, and there's two farmers stood at a gate, and one says to the other, it's starting to get PC round here again, you know, like in an American hick drawl accent. And the other one was like, how long do you think it's going to last? And it was like, oh, it lasted about 4 years last time. I mean, maybe they're right. Maybe we're in, you know, the bubble of it, and it's going to die down a little bit. That said, I think that they're being overly optimistic. And I mean, look, the problem's social media, isn't it? Let's be fair. That's what's kind of screwed everything. Is the echo chambers that it creates, especially when you look at the way that the amount of time people spend on Facebook, and the way the algorithm works in terms of it will keep showing you things that you interact with. So if from a marketing perspective based, you know, you need to get those clicks, therefore you're going to do the things that get the most clicks. Now, typically speaking, outrage isn't actually always the best emotion to appeal to in a lot of studies, but it's probably the easiest one to churn out. So yeah, I think they were being more ambitious with seeing it going away, but yeah, it's a horrifying thought rather than there's anything we can do about it.
I just show them as humorless prigs, you know, like, this is a perfect example of them just not being able to take a joke or even understand the construction of a joke. It's a pug doing Sig Heil. That's hilarious. Come on. Even if you don't find it funny, it's like, you understand. Like, how can anyone not?
You know what we should do? And this would, I unfortunately don't think that we're large enough as a group to do this. Everyone who has dogs, teach your dog to do the Sig Heil. Make a big compilation video of maybe 100 dogs doing the Sig Heil, and see how viral we can make it go. And I would urge anyone outside of the UK, if they're listening, who has a dog, teach them, do the video, send it to me, and we'll put them up. We'll do something with them. We'll make you know, if you've it's Catching Smoke on the Discord, so send them to me. We'll promote them. We'll make sure people see them, and we'll make we'll make a continuation of the Nazi pug, but we'll have if anyone's got a German Shepherd, that would be perfect, just for the record.
I was actually thinking about doing this already, because I've got a cat that likes to, whenever I put her on the bed, she likes to jump off immediately. I was thinking, what if I just did that, like I stick her on the bed, you want to go gas the juice? She jumps off, throw her right back on mid-flight, you want to go gas the juice? She flies right off.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
Just so people understand, you don't have to teach your dog to respond to Sieg Heil or anything. You can just use, editing techniques for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a minute. Come on. That's you're telling people to fake it. No.
Yeah, what if I
want to?
I mean, Dankula himself said that it will react that way to anything you say in that pitch of voice. It reacts to, he says gas the Jews. You could say, I don't know, Celtic suck, and it would probably do the same thing. And for any, I'm not sure if he's a Celtic or a Rangers fan actually, but he's from Dankula's from Glasgow, right?
Mm.
It'll be one of the two.
Yeah, it's Edinburgh. Was it Edinburgh?
Oh, he's at Edinburgh. Oh, it doesn't matter then. So if he was in Glasgow, it'd be more dangerous to say one of those two things.
Well, that's the thing. If we so you heard that everyone, get your animals to do the Sieg Heil, and we're gonna have a Liberalist meetup at a dog park, and we'll call it the Nazi doggy.
Oh, good lord!
The Nazi doggy death squad meetup. I think that would be a lot of fun if we did that. Yeah.
That would be fun, but we're going to have the media jumping all over that, be like, "See, they are Nazis. They admitted it."
Well, it looks like we're coming up on the hour, and I got dinner. So I want to thank you all for jumping in, having a nice discussion. Please join us on the Facebook, like we said, just to run through what we're doing. April 23rd at the courthouse in Scotland, there is an event. You can see it on our Facebook. We're going to start the promotions for that ASAP. There's a regional directory on theliberalist.net, the Liberalists with an extra S there, okay, .net. Find your local regional group, join up. Discord link is down below. Academic Agent has templates for MPs. You can write your MP. We urge you to do so. And the Liberalist also has 3 different templates below that. So there's a lot of ways to get involved. Even if you're not in the UK, jump in and help out. Let's pull this wagon forward for the defense of speech. Don't even say free speech anymore. Gents, we're going to say we're defending speech.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. So, catching. Chancellor, Yorick, Fogmind, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Not a problem, man.
Have a good one.
Speak soon.